The fuck just happened?
I don't know, dude. I'm trying to figure it out.
Seriously, we cannot have this happen today. What the hell is going on?
Hang on a second. Computer, run full systems check.
Initializing systems check. Current levels are beyond critical mass.
Is the system just shutting down?
I don't know. I don't think I can handle it this time.
We need to do something right now, dude.
There's only one thing we haven't tried.
Oh, no. We're not doing that.
Oh, I'm doing it. There is no other way.
Just fucking do it.
Computer, begin emergency protocols. Execute Plan D.
Failure to comply. Implementation of Plan D exceeds current safety protocols.
Computer, override safety protocols and execute Plan D now.
Whatever you say, Dan. Voice authorization override. Discuss metal, Dan. Accepted. Safety limits have been bypassed. Plan D is now in effect. Industrial December, now in progress. Episode 200, loading. Fetching all files tagged. Roach Rider, for life.
Keep it rolling, baby.
You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 200, KMFDM, with Matt Naas of Roach Koach.
I don't do the funky without the money monkey. Who are you? I don't know about that.
Hosted by Dan Terry.
Yeah, like, again, do you like KMFDM? Then you're going to like this record. Or maybe not. I don't know.
And Joseph Wren. Bullshit. Presented by discussmetal.com. And if you killed the king to make a god out of blood, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe. That is Dan. Matt Naas is here from Roach Koach. He is going to take us on a journey through the industrial glory that is KMFDM. What have we done to ourselves? We did this to you too, right?
Keep it rolling, baby. Dan, how are you, my friend?
I'm alive, man. I woke up and all I can remember is just endless loops and samples and sometimes a guitar, sometimes not, sometimes pretty singing, sometimes not so pretty singing, sometimes hooky kooky songs. That's a word now.
Look it up.
Hooky kooky. The old hooky kooky. It'll get you every time. This is the most interesting thing, and it actually has made me almost want to kill Industrial December. Let me just tell you this: if we had not done that episode on Godflesh, I would not be here. That was the redeeming thing. But this is very interesting, and this is one of those things where I listened to all these records, I think, back in June, right? And I was like, I don't want to do this.
We've been listening to these records for months.
Yeah.
Not weeks, not days, months.
No, you had to make there's 21 albums. From 1984 to this year, they put out a remix record, so we got off easy.
Right.
Through 2019, 21 records. KMFDM doing it again, and by doing it again, making the exact same album 21 times. Woo! Where to start? Where to even start, Dan? Joe, Dan, how are you guys holding up? Because I never want to hear this band again.
Yeah, I'm good. For the most part, we are at the tail end of 2020. In case you're listening to this, from the future, and you're rustling through a abandoned Walmart for scraps or something. Know that at the end of 2020, I was sitting in my basement doing relatively all right, sitting on my mountain of Spam with a double barrel shotgun like a true American would be doing. But yeah, and listening to KMFDM, which is, it's an experience, man. There was definitely a lot of highs and lows, but I'm wondering if those were just like perceived by me, because I was trying to find more meaning in it than there was. But, I think I'm doing okay. How about you, Joe?
I have been slowly but surely, amidst all of the podcast editing, uploading, distributing, everything that I do that does not involve listening to records. I have still been sneaking in KMFDM records for most of the year. And it's a nice change when you've been listening to nothing but grindcore, metalcore, death metal, deathcore, hardcore, and everything Dan wants to listen to for the last 12 months, and over 200 episodes, to just sneak in a piece of the Matrix soundtrack every now and then. It just gives you time to breathe and think about why you don't want to listen to that band, because KMFDM, correct me if I'm wrong, they are one of the standard bearers when it comes to remixes, industrial, and for no better explanation than let's all rave, get high, and dance.
Yeah, KMFDM is pretty much, I mean, if there's a Mount Rushmore of industrial metal, they're on it. You know, Ministry's on it, KMFDM's on it, and then everybody else is trying to get in spots 3 and 4. Like, they really, really locked in the sound. I was amazed starting at the absolute beginning, which is a little album called Opium, which got I didn't hear the version of Opium that got released. I heard the remastered version that got released a few years ago, and that's basically all you can find streaming it online, unless you have the copious amounts of money to get like the original tape that they made, which I am not doing. But it is insane to me that in 1984, this band was like, this is what we sound like, period, full stop.
Good luck.
So the production on industrial and industrial metal has always been thin. Mm-hmm. Gated drums, fucking gated reverbed drums to death, tinny guitars, shitty snares, just a nightmare to listen to. But it's great warehouse music. It's just the soundtrack of a warehouse. Just at night, a soundtrack of a warehouse at night with goth teens dancing. KMFDM captures that in every song. You know what KMFDM is not great for?
Variety.
Hooks.
They have 3 songs. They have 3 songs that they're going to give to you. The guitar one that goes do-do, 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 do-do.
Oh, I know this one. I love this.
I know that song.
By the way, my favorite KMFDM song is Drug Against War.
There you go.
And guess what? The guitar is do-do, 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 do. 4 on the floor. Don't think, dance. And then you've got the slower. By the way, just a comment on the whole discography. Stop writing 5-minute songs.
Right?
They could be 3 minutes, Anesh. Hey, Sasha Konietzku. They could be 3 minutes. Raymond Watts. You got it done in 3 minutes, guys. That other 2 minutes is you're double dipping a lot of these ideas.
It's like too much cream cheese on a bagel. It's just, once you run out of bagel, the other ingredient, it's not complimenting anything.
I don't need a half inch of cream cheese on every bite of bagel.
Right?
And that's what they're giving. They're giving you a solid brick of cream cheese in every bite. And you're like, that's too much cream cheese. That's really cool for a bite. But then you gave me 21 bites of it.
21 bites of inch-thick cream cheese. Oh, God.
Yeah, this band is terrible for a sit-down listen. They are like, I tried very hard just to sit down and put on KMFDM. And it is awful for that.
Can't do it, yeah.
Where this band shines, driving. This is great driving music. If you want to feel like you're a speed demon badass, put on a KMFDM record at night while you're driving, taken care of. Perfect.
Sounds like some Lost Highway vibes.
Oh, it's awesome. I love it. I mean, we both come from dystopian hellscape cities. It's wonderful music to drive through.
Absolutely.
And we had to talk about this band in 2020, the absolute shittiest year I can remember.
Super weird year. Super perfect time for KMFDM. Also, great for great for dancing inside of said warehouse.
Right.
Perfect driving inside, dancing inside of a warehouse.
6 feet away from everyone while you're dancing. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I on Roach Koach I had mentioned a few times, and I mentioned it on our recent Ministry record when I was 18, and I've always kind of dressed preppy, period, but I went to goth industrial clubs because nobody would care. Like
Right.
I didn't want to go to, Club La Boom and try to freak on anybody. It was like all my friends were computer scientists and into electronic music. So it was like, we're going to City Club. I'm like, so am I. And it was like, oh, we can just dance. I can just look like an idiot and literally no one cares. Perfect.
Just stick an LED light in your mouth, one that flashes a lot, and you're good. You're
You're good for days.
Yeah, totally.
You're good for days. So listening to this whole discography was just a daunting task, to say the least. And then, you have to find the best way to listen to it. I think, Joey, you're right. Like as a spice or a palate cleanser from like some very, very viscerally hard stuff, this is perfect because it's predictable, it's constant, it doesn't let you down. If you're like, I wonder if KMFDM is going to do that song that goes do 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 do, they gotcha.
I have the same reaction to Combi Christ. Like, there is no reason why you would sit down and only listen to Combi Christ. I want to meet the person who says Combi Christ is their favorite band, because that person has that constant metronome-like tempo, downbeats happening in their head all the time. I want to meet that person. I want to say hello. I want to say thank you. Sorry I said that your favorite band is not your favorite band before I knew you existed. But sometimes when you need to break through whatever wall you're at, and I know we listen to a lot of records on this show. I'm going to say this a lot tonight. This is episode 200. We thought it would be a good idea to one-up ourselves and talk about more records than we did on the Cannibal Corpse episode. And we had to do it during Industrial December because that's when the calendar said episode 200 was coming out.
Up until, I think, I would say up until this episode, Napalm Death was the most, I think, at 14 or 15, and they had like 27 demos before that. Ironically, though, Napalm Death, also a band that if you're only here to hear them do the one thing, 100% got your back the entire time. Like, there's nothing to worry about.
It's very interesting to see a band that formed so early in the 80s, started putting out music 1984, still putting out music, just put out a remix album in dub, which is real bad. Not my favorite.
Did not listen to it.
Oh, Joe and I made the mistake of checking it out.
I did check.
It's RUFF rough.
That sounds like a good pee break for me later. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what I will say is my, to dip into the Roach Koach in me, my history with KMFDM is I started listening to them around Naive, and I stopped listening to them about Neil or Nihil, whichever pronunciation you prefer. Probably Nihil because of nihilist, but who knows? They don't tell you, and they never will. But like, when I take a look at the band's history, they kind of have like three major phases, which is like pre-blowing up, which I would say is Opium, What Do You Know, Deutschland, Don't Blow Your Top, UAIOE, and then like making it in the States, which is like Naive, Money, Angst, Neil, kind of Extort and Symbols. But I feel like those two albums are just, hey, Angst and Neil really sold well. We need content fast. And they're like, oh, well, here's the same songs again.
It's like the Cantina Band in Star Wars. It's like, oh, okay, what do you guys want to hear next? Okay, same thing again. Let's go.
It's like, We love you guys. Play a new one. Okay, here you go. Do 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 do. It's slower.
Get that swing in there, boys.
Grab a lady. So basically, like, making it in the U.S. is pretty much Naive through Adios, and then Comeback KMFDM into perpetuity is Attack through Paradise. Like, they pretty much now have the rinse, wash, repeat formula down. Like, I feel like stylistically, those are also pretty much the 3 new sound points as well. Like, Opium through UAIOE, they really, really have that dark wave, standard goth industrial, well, setting the template for standard goth industrial music. Like, bare bones, like, hey, I have one idea that sounds dark. DARQUE. Like, this sounds dark. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they're like, well, which guy do we want to sing on it? The guy who sounds like, let me tell you something. Or do we want the other guy? Deutschland. Like, which one do we want?
I vote for that guy. We're talking about Rammstein, right? Different
Hey,
guy?
there were some female vocals peppered in there.
Well, I mean, the nice thing about them is when they do get to Naive, and there's too many records. When they get to Angst and Light opens up, I'm like, that's the way of the world. Everybody needs somebody. I'm like, okay, this feels different. And they did a little bit of that, like the female vocal kind of like taking from the Sisters of Mercy into the kind of like stalwart KMFDM formula, shaking it up and being like, yeah, we can have a poppy song that still's DARQUE dark.
Right.
I think I'm going to steal that for my transition. So good God, Dan, I hope you're ready.
I'm not ready.
Here's the problem right now. Dan looks like he's been through a battle. Dan looks like he we're going to have to be like, hey, man, we were all there. Like, we all saw it. You're not alone. You're okay. You made it. You don't ever have to listen to it again.
You guys don't remember the voices of the children crying?
We all do.
We all remember.
Yeah, we all listened to the beginning of How Rock.
Oh.
Well, before Dan talks about how different it feels to record episode 200, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We're on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, twitch.tv/DiscussMetalDan for all your game streaming and episode recording live streams. So if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
Well, we do enjoy our 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion. But one thing that I like more than reviews is, honestly, just you guys reaching out and sharing the episodes with your friends. There's nothing more fun for me than whenever I get banned from a Facebook group for double posting something, only to realize that one of you has actually already posted the episode in said group. Like, I'm not even upset about it. It actually makes me smile like really big ear to ear. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, share the show with your friends and family. I recommend sharing it with people that you think aren't into it. I find that those sort of reactions are always pretty golden. So, definitely make sure to start them with, like, I don't know, like the aborted episode or the...
something easy, something accessible.
Simple. Very simple, gets the point across. But I just want to thank you guys who do share the episodes and for people that email and send messages. Sometimes getting a good email is the difference between a good and bad day, especially this year. So thank you so much for that.
And now Matt's going to tell us all about Roach Koach and what else is going on in Gabber Media.
Whoa, buddy. So in December, we are doing a few different things. Number one, we have the greatest gifts. So we are doing 3 greatest hits albums. And They are not necessarily new metal. In fact, they can be any genre. So if you've listened, you know that we've just done Ministry's Greatest Fits. We did Sloan, A-Sides Win, and we just did the greatest hits of Mariah Carey.
Nice.
Yeah. And
Please tell me that one was Lauren's.
No, that was Jenny's.
Oh, okay.
And we got 2 episodes left in the year, and both of them will feature System of a Down. It will be Mesmerize and Hypnotize. We're doing them back to close out 2020. And then in January, we're back at it. You know what? It's your episode 200. We're going to do Hot Action Cop.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Don't do it. Don't. Please tell me you haven't done it already.
No, we haven't done it yet.
Don't do it.
Oh, I know.
I listened to that whole record after I heard the Ministry episode.
Oh.
And I wish I hadn't. I mean, I ran lovingly back into the arms of KMFDM.
Sasha and Ash, they were all there to give you a sweet hug.
No surprises.
I need to go back for a second, though. So you're telling me that Mesmerize, Hypnotize is 2 albums?
We are treating them as individual releases. So that is how we are handling it. So even if it's an EP, even if it's like 2 halves of the same album, we are treating them as 2 separate releases because it makes it easier for us at the holidays.
Whatever works, man. Those records are arguably the best, even though they're not my favorites. They encompass everything that System of a Down did throughout their, at the time, ending career.
Crazy, right?
I know.
We need to do a revisit on them.
You just want to be on the episode this time.
I never got to give my opinion. It's kind of my thing. It's fine.
We got a comment on episode 123, Alice in Chains with Metal Jesus Rocks. Matthew McCormick says, I stopped listening after the digs on Facelift. Just kidding. Great show. I really do love Facelift almost as much as Dirt, though. Being from Seattle, too, it was great to hear the perspective from the scene back then.
I was having dirty diapers during the Seattle scene, whenever it really hit its stride. So I appreciate that they got a little bit of perspective on that. Over on Twitter, Hugo Fernandez says, hey, Discuss Metal. Hey, I was wondering if you would do a Machine Head episode, or more importantly, I want to know how Dan and Joe feel about Rob Flynn. Well, let me go over and look at my shrine I have in my basement of Rob Flynn, and we'll talk about it. I have a lot to say.
I'm putting it on the list next year.
In reference to episode 5, this is really going back, A Plea for Purging, 195 episodes back. Man, I should have listened before, but thanks at Discuss Metal.
You're welcome.
Was that a 2017 episode?
That was very early in 2017. Obviously, it was at the start of the podcast.
Well, make sure to go check out our Discuss Metal episode that we did with Andy Atkins of A Plea for Purging. That dude was a ton of fun. And, again, I love it whenever dudes are like, yeah, man, I think I'm pretty much the greatest lyric writer of all time.
Party on forever.
Right. And in reference to episode 197, Horse the Band, at Zombie Fight Fan, says, first-time listener. Came for the horse, but enjoyed the podcast. While our Borlax always will be the apple of my eye, I think Desperate Living is their opus, and I hope it grows on you. Yeah, once I get around to listening to Horse the Band again, I think it probably will grow on me, but that was definitely the one that I spent the least amount of time with, and just did not do the thing for me. Gaseous Clay says, I can't think of a better tie-in to the latest episode of the start of Industrial December. We thought that it would be interesting, too, to take a sort of electronic band and kind of ease our toes into the pool, so to speak.
That was a pretty sweet cover of March of the Pigs, though.
They also put out a new EP, Horse the Band did, I think like 2 minutes after we put the episode out.
What is the deal with episodes leading to new releases?
I know. It's we have no idea.
This shit happens all the time on the Roach Koach. Seriously, Matt, what the fuck?
Hey, man, we just call it the Roach Koach bump. We just say that once you get on Roach Koach, we reintroduce you to the zeitgeist, and we kind of clear the way for you to have 10 to 20 copies of your album sell.
One more. We got an email from Tyler. He says, all I wanted to say is that I love your show. As a metalhead, I feel different from everyone else because of my music preferences. So when I feel the most lonely or down, I come to you guys for the goofy jokes and the metal enthusiasm that I also feel. You guys are like the fun uncles that I listen to. I'm going to just be comfortable with the fact that I am now in uncle territory and not friend.
Hey, Funkle Dan, you got it.
There you go. I found you guys while searching the internet for metal podcasts, especially for Gojira content. I love Gojira. I own 3 of their vinyls for Mars the Sirius, The Way of All Flesh, and L'Enfant Sauvage. My favorite album of theirs, which also happens to be my favorite album of all time, is The Way of All Flesh. Mine too, not of all time, but by Gojira for sure. Ever since then, I've been obsessed with your podcast. You guys got me into Dark Tranquillity, At the Gate, Soilwork, The Contortionist, and others. You guys also reignited my interest in other bands like Dream Theater and Slayer. 2 very, very far ends of the spectrum. I love it.
Absolutely.
Whenever I do find a band on my own, I always look at your episodes to see if you guys have had opinions on them. Tyler, thanks a whole lot, man. I was having a terrible, terrible, terrible day at work whenever that thing dropped in. And definitely feels good, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you.
That's awesome.
And Tyler's been on the Discord server, so he is in contact.
That's always awesome when people find things from listening to your show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, like, because I know sometimes, like, we put them out and basically forget about them. You know what I mean?
It is like fly, bird, fly.
Yeah. It's like I'm out. It's either like, oh, that was a cool band, or it's, oh, God, I never have to listen to that again, or whatever. But then, you know, people will come back and listen and they'll be like, oh, I never really thought about this band like that before. Or maybe I just needed to hear a joke that day, or I needed to hear something, you know. And so it's super cool.
Hey, Matt, have you heard this album Strangers Only by My Ticket Home?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I have.
So have I. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you
God,
guys
that record fucking owns. I love that record.
It
so
fucking
good.
does.
It's so good.
How can people find our Discord server, Dan?
Oh, well, there's a link in our show notes that'll take you to the wonderful world of Discord. If you go in, you're going to show up on the landing pad. There are definitely other categories that you can post in besides landing pad. I'm not complaining. I just want you to know.
I'm going to say it one more time. It's episode 200, guys. We've been doing this for quite a while. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Whoa! Keep it rolling, baby.
Here's to you. Here's to our listeners. And for God's sake, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me.
Here's to you. Woo!
So, Matt.
Yeah, buddy.
Tell me about KMFDM.
Where to begin?
1984, Opium.
It all begins in 1984 with a little guy named Sasha Konietzko and his buddy Anesh and a guy from Britain named Raymond Watts. And they were like, hey, do you have a synthesizer? Yeah, I do. What can it play? This. Oh, why don't we record that? Cool. I guess the album's done. Opium. Oh boy. So, like I said, it was the first time that I had actually heard Opium was when we listened to it here. And wow, the clarity of form and structure right off the bat. This is a band that had no growing pains. They came out fully formed. Love them or hate them, Opium is a KMFDM album. It's not like Ministry where you hear With Sympathy and then you hear Land of Rape and Honey and you're like, huh? What happened to Ministry? This is like, nope. This is who we are and who we have always been.
It absolutely is a KMFDM record. I have not listened to this band extensively in my lifetime. I've never sat down and listened to a KMFDM record knowingly, with some exceptions. Obviously, you listen to Nihil because it's Nihil by KMFDM. It's like a big breakthrough for most people. There are dozens of songs, and I found those little moments of joy while listening to this discography because as soon as I felt lost, I heard a song that I had heard before. I love listening to this first album, and it doesn't sound like the band had to grow into what was going to be their thing. I mentioned it on the Godflesh episode that there was a time in the 80s, the early 80s, where you didn't have the standard bearers. You didn't have Nine Inch Nails doing Pretty Little Hate Machine. You didn't have Godflesh making this dirge of an album and you didn't have KMFDM yet. Here we are, it's 1984, and they're creating some very dark, intense industrial music.
I don't know, man. To me, this one sounded like somebody threw a synthesizer down a flight of stairs. It's an absolute art piece, is what it is. And if you dig into the history of the band, they basically, this album was recorded as a soundtrack, like to an actual visual art display.
That tracks so well because it is you're about to hear 21 albums of the same GD thing over and over and over again. But this album cranks that to 10. Fix Me Up is one loop for 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And then it is rinse, wash, repeat. Like, oh, I found a new loop. We'll play it for 3 minutes, 51 seconds then. Fix Me Up, Splatter, The Smell, Helmut, Mein Helmut. Like, all of these songs are the same loop played with minimal, is sometimes 0% alteration. Every once in a while, you'll get like, coming through, and that's like it. Yeah, this definitely feels like an art piece. Like, oh, cool. Yeah, show the black and white Nuremberg trials, play this, and we're good.
So we're in ghost territory, is what you're telling me.
Oh yeah, and the live show was intense in that, like, there's like if you read up on the band, like early incarnations of the band featured fire eating and throwing entrails at an audience, and
yeah,
I mean, I guess that's just a German industrial thing, as we kind of got into on the Rammstein episode of, you know.
Well, it definitely they started much more as performance art. They definitely were just trying to provide the soundtrack to a radical art experiment where people would come and go as they pleased, and you could do whatever you wanted to do, and this would be the soundtrack to it. And then all of a sudden, the soundtrack got way more popular than the art installations themselves. And it took them probably about 10 years for that to happen.
Yeah, and on the positive note, I'll say this sounds more modern than it should have in 1984.
That's the thing, is that stylistically, it sounds like it could come out 10 years ago or right now and not be that far off.
No, it's danceable. It's got like that EDM kind of feeling to it, and
definitely
it is. But it's dark and it's creepy, but not in such an overt like Dracula's Castle, Rammstein sort of way. Like it's more of the dingy, almost. I use this word a lot because I guess I'm subconsciously waiting for this game to come out, but just almost kind of cyberpunk. A little bit in that, like, you know, you're in a dirgy, I think, as you said earlier, in a hellscape of a city, you know, sort of scenario. So I mean, I think in that regard, it is very ahead of its time. It's not to the point where I'm gonna like it and like put my stamp of approval on it yet.
Right, you've listened to Ghosts one time and said, yeah, Trent Reznor has a sweet loops collection, but you're not going to go back and listen to it.
This is more than that.
I understand what both of you are saying, because there is a piece where the bigger bands than KMFDM tend to make the things that KMFDM does sound better.
Yep.
And I think that's because of the repetitiveness of KMFDM. Why Niall feels like such a breakthrough is because it was, number one, the most it is truly the most written album of songs that are distinct in their whole catalog, dare I say. Like, I feel like the top 3 tracks of Niall don't feel like any other KMFDM songs.
Yeah. Just wait though. Get past those 3 tracks.
Correct. And then I mean, obviously they have their bag of tricks, but the thing is, like, people, they're such a touchstone that it, you know, I mean, I think of like Front 242, I think of Nitzareb, I think of like the other industrial bands that were floating around in that time of the early 80s, that early Wax Trax stuff, and KMFDM was doing better than they were, I think. and doing the style better. But then their Achilles heel appeared, which is they aren't terrific songwriters.
Yeah.
They can get a hook. They get hooks every once in a while, and all they know how to do is repeat the hook.
Just do them to death. Yeah.
Yeah, there isn't a, and I feel like you see that over and over and over in this discography, where it's like, again, I go to the albums I know really, really well. When I go to Naive, I'm like, okay, perfect. Hey, we're here. Go to Hell. Great song. Virus. Yup. I know what's going on. I know what's happening, but there is I can't tell the difference between Achtung, Frieda, Liebesleid. I can't tell the difference in any of those songs. I couldn't tell you how they went at gunpoint.
Isn't that a quality of classic industrial, though? It's not about the song.
It's much more about a mood, and it's much more about, can you move to it?
1986. What do you know, Deutschland?
I'll tell you what I know. This is the first appearance of the Brute artwork, and the artwork, honestly, I think takes all of these albums up a level.
100%. Yeah. It's so cool.
It's the best. The thick black lines, everything about the artwork lets you know that you're in for it. Tonally, it is perfect. I know that he's done. I know he was a commercial artist. He's done a couple of their videos. He had a magazine called Brute. He has a real name. I could certainly look it up. But the name of the album was the name of the magazine was Brute. So that's kind of how he went by. And I feel like they are a match made in heaven. I love the artwork on pretty much every KMFDM album. Misogyny notwithstanding, because holy crap, if you want misogyny in an artistic piece, he's got you covered.
I'm with you on that. Some of my favorite albums have a consistent artwork throughout them. My favorite example is the classic Blue Note albums.
Yes.
They always look a certain way, and yes, that's multiple artists in one label, but the same idea. Where's the new Blue Note albums this week? Oh, there they are.
Yeah,
just
you
the
take
same.
a look
if you're into KMFDM, you just look for that black border and that text, whatever color they decide to use this week, and you're in.
Yeah, because I've been purchasing albums now on vinyl for about 2 years, and at 43, I finally am like, oh, jazz isn't bad, which takes forever sometimes.
Welcome.
And yeah, the Blue Note stuff is so cool because of that stylistic choice, and it lets you know what you're in store for. And what do you know, Deutschland? Definitely tonally similar to Opium, but a bigger swipe at writing songs. Still not great. It's okay. Nothing here makes a mixtape.
Absolutely
I'll tell you
not.
that.
This is a huge step up from Opium, in the sense that it, to me, feels like a record that has, it's a stretch, but songs on it. And I like, there was a much bigger, you could tell the first record, it's an art piece, right? We're just the sound aspect of this giant multimedia experience. This record is more like a record, and is more like, okay, now we've realized that the band is more popular than the art, than the art and the live show and all that. People just want to hear the band. I'm not sure who those people are, but there must have been at least 6 of them. And I think that they were like, okay, how do we do this for real? Well, first let's put out a 68-minute album. But it's got that underground credibility. If I was a kid,
Right. Yes.
in December of 1986, which I was.
Very
I think I was
few
one.
bands are even attempting to do what they're doing in 1986.
Yeah, and you couple it with that artwork, and you've got even if it's not good, because I've been through this tons of, I listen to grindcore, guys. Even if it's not good, it does instill that feeling, even in me all these years later, that I'm listening to something special, and my parents are definitely not going to get this.
Very,
like,
very, very true. As a child who listened to it, whose parents did not. Yeah, that is.
And it sets the template in place for how do you make a good industrial rock record or an industrial metal record. You have a central idea, the beat, and whatever effects go into making the beat, and then you subtly vary the things that are going on around it. So this has the classic guitar just stabbing every couple seconds, doing something kind of weird and interesting, pepper in some vocals here and there, and you have what most people consider to be industrial music.
Listening to it, I did get nostalgic because it is a sound I grew up with. And when and they do it so well, and it's like, oh yeah, like I know exactly what this is. I know this feels like an old shirt that actually fits. Like, there you are, buddy. Missed you. A comfy pair of shoes to walk around in. Like, yeah, everything's still there. But the songs are so long.
So long. I mean, just to the point of I didn't make it through this album. I got maybe about 4 or 5 tracks in before I was like, let's see how they innovated on the next one. And
talking about the next one, let's go there.
Yeah, I mean, let's not blow our tops here, but like
1988, don't blow your top.
Thank you for that transition, Matt.
God, did you guys like the last record?
I actually did.
It very much is a rinse, wash, repeat with there's subtle things that they start adding in. The Raymond Watts inclusion in the early 80s stuff into the end of the 90s. Raymond Watts is probably my favorite KMFDM vocalist. I think his Pig moniker and the stuff that he was doing as Pig holds up fairly well. He has a definite sneer to the way that he presents his vocal stylings that I still to this day like. And to kind of hear them in these records, I was okay with. But again, I feel like they know what they're doing as a band, but they don't know songcraft well enough to create an industrial hit.
I love listening to these types of industrial albums, especially from the late 80s and early 90s. It's unfair to KMFDM that my standard of what industrial should sound like starts and ends with 9 Inch Nails. It's Pretty Little Hate Machine. It's the Downward Spiral.
I love that you're adding little to Pretty Hate Machine. Just that brings me so much joy. That it's like Pretty Little Hate Machine.
I do it all the time. It's wrong, but I can't help myself.
Honestly, you've said that so many times now, I kind of forgot that the little isn't even in there. That's kind of funny.
My point is that you have sounds that only seem to exist at this time in music, whether it's indie or mainstream. There's basically 2 synthesized drum sets that you have heard in your life. Whatever KMFDM is doing in 1988 and prior, and everything that was being done by every hair metal band ever. That's it. Those are the synths.
I find it interesting that a band that uses synth to this degree is not more melodic than they are. There is a little bit of melody on this record. Kind of stood out to me. It's not a lot. This band is still, for whatever reason, despite the genre that they are in, do seem to feel like they just want to keep it hard, as much as they can. However hard translates into electronic music. I personally sometimes have a little bit of trouble following that unless there's more guitar. And the guitar that is in KMFDM is not, at least on not this record, what I would consider to be hard rock guitar, or something that my ears are used to following. But I think it's interesting.
I think Joe described it well with stabs. Mm-hmm. It is a stabbing guitar. It is like 3 chords. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo.
It is very stabby. I can't stand how thin it is, though. Like, to me, it's like
whisper thin.
Oh my God. Like, I can't, like, for a guy that's kind of a meathead, I mean, I'm definitely, to keep this 80s, I'm like, where's the beef? Like, 100%.
Very nice. Even before your time.
Do you like squawk and treble? then you're gonna love these guitars.
All right,
Oh,
Matt.
my God.
I got an idea. We're gonna just not use amps ever. Just plug everything directly into the PA.
Perfect. Yeah,
Flashing back to Ganglia right now.
I love that.
Oh,
it's
Matt, you haven't heard Ganglia.
No, I've not.
We'll talk later.
Expect a Google Drive file to appear at some point in your messenger.
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, everything's direct. They're just like, we have one mixer and 2 mics and 2 singers. So guess what, guys?
Plug
Yeah.
that shit in and see what happens.
It still sounds better than Mushroom
Excuse me.
Head.
We have 1 mic for the live drums and 1 mic for the singer.
Oh, yeah, this is fine. Like, I totally get why if they had, well, the fans that they had at the time, they definitely kept. There was no, this band was never going to sell out. And I think even when they did, they didn't.
And here's the thing. There is a wry sense of humor, a very German sense of humor that really keeps appearing in their albums, but like No Meat, No Man is like kind of like how Rammstein plays with hypermasculinity. KMFDM plays with masculinity, political identification, social issues. They play with all of it, and they do it with this bravado and machismo that is like fully unearned from the nerds that they are.
Oh, yeah. But I do think that they're clever, and that's the thing that I'll give them over some of the other industrial bands, especially like with Ministry. Ministry, unfortunately, we went through it for like 2 hours, and there's some stuff I definitely like from Ministry, but I always felt like this was a dude that thought that he was way more clever than he was. Whereas you look into something like KMFDM, where like they are clever on top of clever. Like you have that kind of like ultra, like if you were a meathead and you were listening to it, you wouldn't get the joke. But if you're not a meathead, but like it's fine for you. But if you're not a meathead and you kind of dig into the lyrics, which I didn't, I'm not going to lie. But if you dig into the lyrics, like at least the stuff that you can hear, there is a subtlety and a sort of cleverness there in some of the wordplay. But I think it's a disservice to it because they'll take sometimes that hook that they come up with, like we said earlier, and they'll just beat it into the ground to where it almost becomes not clever. It goes from being like, oh, that's really funny, to you guys get it? You got it right? Did you guys get it?
And they're hoping to do it long enough that it's funny, not funny, hysterical.
Yeah, and it just doesn't.
And sometimes it doesn't work.
It doesn't get more from me other than like a.
Well, let's hop on to the next one because we can't be here all day.
Matt is driving this episode. I love it. Is this an actual word or is it just the vowels in a different order?
I always put it as the vowels in a different order. UAIOE.
1989.
Probably the first real song that I heard from them was Rip the System off this album. Black man, white man, rip the system. And here's my other favorite thing. That appears in like 27 other KMFDM.
Oh, yeah. They can't get past it.
Once they figured out KMFDM better than the rest, KMFDM, doing it again, those are in like 70 songs.
You said it earlier. This is the first era, the first sound, the late 80s, early 90s. It all sounds like this. This is what you want it to sound like. Cosmetically, it sounds like other stuff that was on the radio at that time.
You know what? I put this on when I want to see 2 Highlanders fight in a parking garage. I mean, this is perfect. Blade is going at it. Perfect. But in turn, Virus is from this record. Virus is in the other one. Virus gonna kill you. Perfect. Perfect, guys. Song written.
Just to keep this on brand, I'm trying to make sense of this Robert Christgau review of this album.
Did Christgau review this?
Yeah, dude. So get this. In both reggae and rock modes, this twisted Belgian dance band is groovier than the noise norm, positively sinuous sometimes, especially on the pick-to-click Murder. What? Guest vocalist Metal Heldenator spliffed up toaster, add personality, risking the, I don't even know what that word is, risking the Vertoben corn, yet the product emerges unscathed. Dare to struggle, dare to win, B+. What?
Wow.
But
So,
I mean, B
first of all,
is actually pretty
best
good for him.
name ever. Did you actually say Metal Headinator?
Metal Heldinator.
Dude, that sounds
With one
like
L,
the
not two
lead
Ls.
singer of Gwar decided to join Slayer and he had to change his name.
Joe, can we put a link to this review in the show notes? I want somebody to translate this for me because I have no idea what he was trying to tell me.
I got you covered.
Okay. Like I was like, oh, Robert Kreisgau did this one. Let's check this out. Then I was like, what did I just read?
What did I just read?
Does anybody else have anything on this one?
No, this is.
I think we're good. I think this is the first one. So this is 89. They're starting to understand what works a little bit more. Like they still have the signature sound is there, but they're starting to distill some things into some songs that are like, this one's a little bit better. This one's a little bit more catchy. I'm ready.
Matt is ready.
Dan's ready.
1990, Naive.
This begins a hell of a run for KMFDM.
This is cool.
I would say that Naive, Money, Ox, Neil, that's, if you're going to pick up any KMFDM out of this episode, those are the ones I'm always going to push you to. I put out on my Facebook page, what's the greatest KMFDM album? And maybe because we're all old heads, but pretty much 95% of the answers came from this time period.
So this is the best starting point for the new KMFDM listener.
Yeah, I think that they're kind of breaking the shackles of who they were, becoming who they are. They're solidly on wax tracks in the United States. I think this is where Sasha and Ash moved to the United States. So they're in Chicago. They're recording. I know that he's sometimes in Seattle as well, Portland, like, Pacific Northwest. But like these albums in general are the best representation in my opinion. Like the later albums, actually, I was surprised at how much I did like. But it wasn't like, well, I'm never going to listen to Naive again because I have Hell Yeah. I was like, no, I think I'm good with Naive.
Crossover. That's what this record has that everything up to this point has not had. You can actually play this in clubs. Like, I know this is like club music or whatever, and you could definitely play the old albums in underground clubs. But this is like, you could play this in a club in middle America. And everybody's like, yeah, man. Like, who is this? Who is this? Like, it's like
Go to Hell is a complete song.
Yes, from start to finish, it is a complete song. It is actually like composed, and it's underground enough to where your fans aren't going to scream you sold out, but it's mainstream enough for a random person to listen to it and feel like they have entered this dark world of industrial that they had no idea existed
Correct.
before. It's perfect. It's not like a gateway band in the sense of like a Linkin Park or something like that.
Nope.
But you absolutely can listen to this and actually feel special like the kids that bought Opium, the album, and you can feel special in that way without actually being special. Like, you'd go back one album and be like, oh, I'm not really into this, but you can absolutely jump on board as a new fan right here and go forward and have a significantly better time.
Absolutely. And I will say, I mean, this was my jumping on point, and I worked at a record store with primarily goth industrial clientele because that was the owner's specialty. Nobody gave anybody, if you liked KMFDM, that was kind of like a very safe band to like. And then they were like, oh, do you like Hansel and Gretel? Do you like V&V Nation? Do you like Pop Tigma Berserk? Are you more into X Marks a Pedwalk? Like, are you more into that side? Or do you want it harder so you're getting more into Frontline? Are you Skinny Puppy? Like, are you more of a purist? Like, you want noise and bones, so you're with Ogre over here? Like, but it's like, I've always felt like KMFDM is a great starting point. Joe said it early, Nine Inch Nails kind of overshadowed them because his songcraft was better. He took the trappings of synth pop put an industrial flair into it, and took all their goddamn money.
And Trent Reznor's guitar had beef.
Exactly.
That's a big thing for me. Beef.
It wasn't recorded through Tin Can in a hallway.
It might have been a couple times.
Hold on, guys. I think somebody cut the yarn. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like it's the most enjoyable album.
Yes.
To listen to at this point in their career, in that you can just listen to it. I don't know. This is the first one I didn't have to put myself in a certain frame of mind.
No, this is it still holds up. It's a good record. Great to drive to. Great to work out to. Kind of keeps you going, keeps you moving. Sasha's on this one because he's on all of them. Still have Naas. This is kind of like peak powers. KMFDM. Gunter Schultz is in here. Those are like the three. Raymond Watts kind of comes in and out in the next few albums because these guys are hard to work with, I think. They just kind of do what they do, and that's it. So people come and go. But Naive, I enjoy very much.
Playing that beat at 77, it's supposed to be at 78. What the actual fuck?
What do you guys think about Money?
I think it came out in 1992 or decades prior if you're thinking of the Pink Floyd song.
I like Money.
Hey Dan,
I actually really like
money?
this album. No, I'm serious. Like, this was the one I probably enjoyed the most out of the whole discography. And
Really?
it's weird. It's weird because of the amount of turmoil that went into this, right? So you've got your main guy who I'm not going to try to pronounce these guys' names.
Sasha. Yep.
Yeah, Sasha. And then you have Naas.
Yeah.
So
the first half of the band is those two guys, and then people go in and out. But Naas and Sasha are pretty much consistent in the 90s.
Well, for this one, Naas and Sasha decided that they were going to each record, like one of them was going to record side A of the album, and then the other one was going to record side B. And ultimately, the record label, like Wax Track, took one look at it and was like, we like the first half. We like the Sasha half. Because that is KMFDM, like straight up.
Absolutely.
The Naas half, they were like, yeah, it just doesn't sound right. So then they write Sasha a fat check and say, can you go ahead and just record side B for us here? And he did, which I think led to probably some severe feelings between the two that I think were eventually hugged out later. But for the time being, this was like a major split or whatever. But I like this one a lot because, and this is going to sound crazy, but this sounded like a lot more like poppy to me.
Well, you've got a big inclusion of female vocals in these songs, and this is and Naas wants to keep you tortured in the basement, and Sasha has a tendency to want to go to the club. The club has chains, but it's still a club.
We'll get to the torture, but let's dance for a little bit beforehand.
Exactly. Yeah, he wants that dark wave goth industrial club feel. And Sasha's like, no, I just want to punish you with a repetitive for like 7 hours.
No way, dude.
But you've
Give
done
me
that already.
the sci-fi soundtrack every single time. Every movie you've seen. Dark City, The Matrix, Blade Runner, if you have the right remix.
Yeah, so like I think that this one was very, very poppy, a little bit more synthy, a little bit more clubby, which is funny because I don't think I've ever been to a club in my entire life. I mean,
one time
that I've enjoyed anyway.
0 times.
I don't like going somewhere where I have to shout over people in order to talk. And I know the whole point's not talking, so it's like I'm completely just in the wrong by being there anyway.
Can you tell Dan likes to be heard?
I love it.
1993. Angst.
Love
Angst,
it. Angst. Whatever it is, this cover is hot.
Oh my god. Mom's coming in. Hide the album cover. Put it under the bed.
Can we just flip the jacket around in the CD? Flip the jacket around in the CD.
Oh, you don't want to see what's in the jacket. But actually, I have no idea. I don't have the CD, but I feel like this is the one that I need on vinyl just so I can put it on my wall, put it behind me, so whenever I'm interviewing Christian rock bands, they can be all like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? This one, I go back and forth between my favorite between this and Nile. Light is such a great song. A Drug Against War is pretty much my favorite KMFDM song. I think Blood, I think Glory's great. A Hole in the Wall. I think this album is very good, KMFDM. I think that this is a template that they stamp out again and again, again and again and again.
Absolutely.
I think they took money, they mixed it in a pot. They might have kind of learned how to directly input a guitar a little bit better. And
there's some like spice black bean burger on this record. It's not quite beef, but we're meant to think that it is. It is like, I mean, if you look at a song like Drug Against War or Drugs Against War, a Drug Against War, rather.
A Drug Against War, yep.
Honestly, I thought that was a Ministry song. Like, I thought that Spotify had done that thing and just played a similar artist. And so I was like, well, what is this weird like speed metal thing doing in my KMFDM song, you know? And then of course the more I listen to it, the part of my brain's like, this is not metal, you know? But like, I think that like, but it's interesting seeing them go in this direction because this is their path to mainstream success.
Correct. Yeah, because it does what it needs to do, and we're going to see in the next albums how it does it, how they get to success with it. It sells pretty well for them. I mean, for an industrial band to move 200,000 units is insane. Like, you know, if My Ticket Home sold 200,000 copies, we would be like, holy shit, that's huge. Yeah. And for a goth industrial metal band to sell 200,000 copies, it on wax tracks. Like,
yeah, I mean, it would be like you calling me up one day and being like, Dan, you're never going to believe this. The newest episode of Roach Koach, 200,000 downloads.
Yeah, I would be like, well, I don't know what we did or how we did it, but my phone is blowing up. Like,
yeah, I'd be all like, Matt, how do we join Matt Gabber Media? You know what I mean? Like immediately, you know, like, but yeah, it's a shocking amount of album sales for a band that sounds like this.
Is this the first time that they fully embrace the metal tendencies of this style? You still have the drum machine, but now we're throwing metal at it all the time.
Yeah. But I mean, Drug Against War introduces the that you'll hear ad nauseum in the back half of their catalog. But it was an easy thing for them to go for because they were never going to get the pretty boy stylings of, you know, a synth pop band. They weren't handsome enough to be Nine Inch Nails. So they kind of squeezed them to the right a little bit. And we're like, all right. Nine Inch Nails is here. We're just a little bit over here into metal territory. And once you say metal, you're already like, okay, that means not mainstream. In 1993, that 1,000,000% says not mainstream, but
absolutely
much more easy to market. Much more easy to say, hey, audience, that right now in 1993, metal is being ignored almost fully. I mean, it's not dead by any stretch of the imagination.
It's fully underground, though, yeah.
But yeah, it is not the thing. And new metal's about to happen. So metal isn't happening in the zeitgeist. Industrial kind of is. And they're like, hey, here we go. Perfect. We don't have to have you in the zeitgeist. You're not alternative. You're not alternative metal.
You're not grunge.
You're not grunge. You're industrial metal. Here we go. We got guitars. You like guitars? We got guitars.
You like riffs?
Listen to a Drug Against War. Yeah, you like riffs? Listen to a Drug Against War. It's the only song that sounds like this on the record. But as long as you buy the record, we're okay.
We're going to put that on the compilation for sure.
In a few years, you are going to buy a record that has a song called Du Hast on it.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like the seed was fully, like the seed they planted earlier fully came to fruition with this record. And you could see, oh, okay, everything about this album makes sense from what we've heard before.
And the reason they did this, they went for the guitar sound over and over and over again, clearly that was the magic button that you push and you move 200,000 units, you know? So like,
Right.
It makes so much sense. Like if I pressed a button and, you know, $12,000 fell from my ceiling, I would just be like, oh, okay, maybe it's stuck. Boom, 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 boom. So I get it. It's not like the most creative decision, but at the same time, it's a decision that totally makes sense coming from a guy that's always just trying to make it and hoping people like the thing that I do enough to keep letting me do it.
Yeah.
So like, I totally get it. And I think this band also is creative in different ways to where they don't necessarily have to rely on the music itself. I think this is a band that's like, well, if people really dig into the lyrics and see what we're really saying, they'll be on board.
And the self-awareness of sucks is funny. But then to finish with the problem, if there's a problem, there's a problem with the system. They are still fully themselves. They might tweak their sound and genre a little bit so that they can move a unit. But like they're the KMFDM-ness of them always comes through.
Yeah, I mean, they're still the kid. Like, you can give them... I don't know if you guys watched Cobra Kai or not on Netflix, but like the funny...
show.
You have that super, super nerdy guy that just gets the crap beat out of him the first time he shows up, and they put him in a mohawk, and they give him a total makeover, and he's like this badass or whatever. But when you're looking at him, you're like, this is still that same kid. That's
Right.
kind of the same thing with this band. It's like they've dressed themselves up with heavy guitars and even maybe try to make us think that there actually is a message to their music, although I'm not convinced that there actually is. But I think it's a lot of wordplay. And I think they also, like, especially for like the metal stuff, I think they just looked promptly over to the street at Ministry and was like, well, what are these guys doing that's making everybody tell us that Al Jorgensen is like, you know, farts lightning and shits thunder or whatever. Like, how do we get that sort of badass notoriety?
And they did it, you know, like Al pretty much abandoned form when he got to Filth Pig. He was like, I can make those records in my sleep. I want to do something different. And good for him. KMFDM went, hey, well, you know, we could do it.
Yeah. Check this out. It's called, and guys, just so everybody knows that we get it, we're going to call it angst.
Next up.
Matt, are you ready?
I'm ready.
1995, Nihil.
I would say it has their biggest hit by far with Juke Joint Jezebel,
Absolutely.
which has never been my favorite KMFDM song.
Agreed.
I understand its appeal and the use of it. Oh, yeah. I mean, God, that movie scene still, I believe, was Mortal Kombat used it.
Yep.
It totally makes sense. But I think Ultra, still a great song. Juke Joint Jezebel, a very solid KMFDM song. And Flesh is probably top tier KMFDM. And these are three songs that really are the KMFDM breaking style, while at the same time completely within their wheelhouse. But I don't think there's three songs that sound like those three in their discography up until this point.
No, this is angst. This is angst done better. This is like angst is proof of concept. Hey guys, we're this band now. And
oh, cool.
Yeah. Nihil is like, okay, so how does this band write songs? You know, like where do we really go from here? How do we keep up the same momentum? We got to have heavy guitars. We got to have faster paced music, you know, and this is also not as concerned with dancing as much as previous records. This is where I really started feeling like the band. I was like, okay, so they're going to see this rock thing through now.
Yes. And to great success. And I would say Juke Joint Jezebel, it's the first time that we've really mentioned this, but like this band has been remixed to death. Like you think there's a lot of studio albums. We would be here for the next 7 months if we talked about all the fucking remix.
All right. Live stream.
$1,500 a month on Patreon. We'll bring Matt back. He'll get a cut of the cash. It'll be worth it for everyone.
Worth it for everybody. But yeah, I mean, like, there's so many remix records from them. There's so many remixes, period, of this band. But Juke Joint Jezebel, because it was featured in Mortal Kombat, got its own remix album. That is to say, like, all of their it's like a platform, that how we talk about a platform now, where it's like they gave everybody something to work off of, and then it was like, hey, Frontline, you want to do a remix? Sure. Hey, Severin Nayarb, you want to do a remix? Sure. Like, they basically, hey, everybody on Wax Tracks, you do a Liebach, do a remix.
Guys, everybody do their homework. I need you to hand in your KMFDM remix by the end of the day.
Oh, man, I don't want to do.
Dude, just shit something out. It's fine.
Can I put this song in the Ghost in the Shell movie?
You know the funny about Flesh, though? Flesh is the first KMFDM song I ever heard.
Okay.
That's the only reason this band made it on the list, because I thought this was a totally different beast than what I was getting into.
Oh, God.
Because I was all like, yeah, I remember that song Flesh. It was pretty banging. You know, like, it's heavy. It's got some cool, like, almost techie guitar work in it. Like, yeah, like more of this. And I had the same experience with Ministry. So imagine me going back and listening to their first album and being like, what happened here? What is going on?
What was happening?
Yeah. But yeah, I think this band has a horrible... They have kind of contributed to the whole... I bought this record because of the single, only to discover that the single was the only song on it that I actually liked.
Sounded like, yep.
But at the same time, the stuff that I liked about Flash, like the heavier songs that were on Nihil, when you get to Extort, it's like, okay, this is the good stuff. Like, you load up the song Apathy, and you're like, okay, these guys are serious.
Isn't this what happens to most industrial bands or even electronic bands, where somebody somewhere who doesn't buy the records and go to the fucking parties and blast the shit on repeat hears one song that sounds kind of cool, and then they call the band up and say, hey, can you remix this? I'm going to put it in a movie. And then all of a sudden, you're the biggest thing, and now you have to deliver more of that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have too much more to say about Nile, so I think it does make sense to head over to Extort, because it's obviously through chronology. It is next.
It does make the most sense, yeah.
1996.
Extort with an X.
Because it's the 90s.
That's
and if
right.
it was
It's
two X's, it would
1996.
be straight edge, right?
That's correct. Just no beer, no drinking, no sex for KMFDM. I don't believe that for a minute. Anish likes. I'm a mess.
Well, we're not saying that you have to.
That's correct. Let him live his life.
Exactly.
So now we are in. So now they're kind of trapped. I think they've set their course and they're riding that wave. Extort is very good, but it was never a record I owned, and it was never a record I listened to past a cursory listen.
This is mainstream KMFDM after somebody finds the song that they like, and the metal fan in me, the industrial rock fan in me, this is the KMFDM that I want to listen to. I like listening to the dance music, but I don't need the dance music to appreciate the dance implications of industrial metal.
Ooh, the dance implications.
You like that, did you?
All right, I respect it.
Anybody else think the song Apathy just sounds like Motorhead? Because I'm listening to Motorhead right now. And I'm not upset. I'm never upset when I'm hearing Motorhead, but it's just one of those, like, it does seem to me that they are starting to lose a little bit of their identity here, just because like they're leaning so heavy into the rock direction that you kind of like, this is where the underground fans that have been there since Opium are like, okay guys, we're like, when are we going to get back to the good stuff?
Isn't this the one too where they were a little disconnected again? Like, I know that they're gonna break up real soon. like it's coming, so it's not too big of a surprise, but I feel like this album was very rushed, and I mean, this is just a year after Nile, so yeah, they're making an album a year right now, so quality control is gonna start to slip. And I think that kind of takes us into Symbols.
Yeah,
Matt is just trudging forward.
Well, no, it's for real though. There's nothing really to extort at all, honestly.
No, I mean it's fine. Like it's literally
It exists.
fine.
It's a thing that you can buy and listen to, and you might like it.
And keep in mind, Symbols is not actually the name of the album, but everyone just calls it that because it's literally just a bunch of cymbals.
Shout out to WD
Not like
Gaster.
cymbals on a drum set, but like, yeah.
1997. Helping you out, Joe.
Thanks, Matt.
Symbols. Okay, Megalomaniac starts this album, and that still is a goth industrial dance floor staple.
You're no Jesus. You're no fucking Elvis.
No, that's not the same. Never mind. Oh my God.
I like that song. I'm okay with this record. At this point in my life, my tastes are changing. So I'm not. So I like this little band. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Radiohead. They're the greatest. This is me in circa 1998, 1999. They're the greatest band that's ever been. My farts smell like delicious strawberries.
Hey, Matt, 2003, Dan called. He said, listen to Zayo.
Or the Bends. You can listen to the Bends.
You can listen to the band. So my tastes are changing. I'm not giving this too much of a chance, but Megalomaniac is still a hit.
Absolutely.
But it's too long. 6 minutes.
I think I know why, though. I think this again is where they are at their most mainstream, and now they've got all these industry people being like, you know what, do whatever you want for the other 9 tracks, but we need a hit.
Yep.
Don't call me until you have a hit. And they're like, oh, what is that guy's problem, man? It's like some sort of megalomaniac. Hey, wait a minute.
That's a good song title.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, man, you'll get your hit. You'll get your hit single. But yeah, the rest of the record is understandably not in the same vein as Extort, but it's not like what I like. I'm beat down at this point, man. Like you guys are really running the well dry. Like you're squeezing mud to get drips of creativity out at this point.
Yep, 100%. So I think it's time for a break. It's time to say adios. 1999. Adios.
Goodbye.
I was like, oh, thank God, it's over. But then
It's not over.
And then we're just
then it's
halfway
not,
through the
yeah.
discography.
We're halfway there.
Oh.
Shit, give me a second.
I literally
Joe's getting wasted on Jaeger.
I literally told Lauren like an hour or two before we did this. I was like, all I have to do is stay alive to the end of the episode. Like that, we've got this. We've got this in the bag.
So we're back to being electronic.
A little bit more, like, oh, look at what we've done. Let's have a little nostalgia in a record. Let's call Ogre over. Ash, one last run at the boards, buddy. Let's do this. Shit, Columbine happened. Fuck.
Yeah.
God,
So before we go that direction, Matt, I want to ask you, were you still active in the industrial scene at all? Would you still go to the clubs even though it wasn't your thing?
Yeah, so in 99, I would still say that I would go to City Club. Absolutely. I would still be there, but there was a tonal shift happening again, away from, especially in the clubs, away from industrial metal and more into intelligent dance music. Whoa, what a terrible title.
Was it intelligent?
No, I mean, stupid. But it was definitely heading towards this V&V Nation sound, like this new dark pop sound. That's what was starting to take over. There was a lot less KMFDM sound, a lot more. I don't know if you've ever heard Empires by V&V Nation. I don't suggest it. I still like it, but it's a lot of bloopy boys, a lot of bleepity blops. And a lot of smooth singing. I only come here seeking peace. Like that. Like, oh, okay. So if you were like, whoa, that sounds like something I want to hear, V&V Nation Empires. But if not, give it a skip. But that was starting to really, really take off. So there was a lot of, I like a band called X Marks the Pedwalk. I like a band called Ha Job. There's a lot more of that starting to creep in, which is straight electronic, but not techno. and not EDM like this other thing that's aligned a lot more with goth industrial, but isn't really goth industrial. They probably tried to put cyber on it for a while. That never really flew either.
Shout out to cyber goth.
But like that type of thing, like it never really took hold in this. Not that I was even a member of the scene. I was just a guy who went to the clubs and danced. But like Wolfsheim, all those types of like much softer. You're getting away from the harder edge. Everything's becoming much softer or much more punctuated by arpeggiators than you're going to hear riffs.
So the subgenre was changing.
Yes.
The people that listened to what they consider to be pure goth industrial were trying to change and keep their underground style underground.
Yeah, you were absolutely losing. Like, you would see all the old heads come out on the dance floor if Warlock by Skinny Puppy would get played.
Fuck yeah.
And then you would watch them leave immediately after when something newer was played. It was like a clear delineation of like, this is new and this is old was starting to happen right here, right at like 1998, 1999.
So where does KMFDM fit in with this album?
They're old at this point. The sound is old. They aren't new anymore. They're not like, you'll still hear Megalomaniac. You still will hear Drug Against War maybe, but you're probably just going to hear Megalomaniac. You're definitely not hearing Light like you used to, or Godlike, or
they've lost
countless
control of the room, basically.
Right. People are in another room now. KMFDM, they are now the Eagles of industrial metal.
Fuck.
They're just there, and they aren't getting much attention anymore. People that are coming into the club aren't looking to them as their North Star anymore.
This is like when Daft Punk won the Grammy and then won the other Grammy and then won the other Grammy. And then a couple of years later, you have people who say, who the fuck is Daft Punk?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense they break up now. They need to break up now. There is nowhere for them to go. It's just weird that they take this break and then 2 years later or 3 years later in 2002 come back with Attack for a nostalgia jaunt. Like, hey, remember KMFDM? Here we are.
And it's not even the classic KMFDM either. It's like the Extort era of KMFDM. Like, this is where they get dangerously close to almost sounding like an industrial nu metal band here.
I can see that. I can definitely see that because, yeah, you've got Scold with Tim Scold's now in the band. Sasha's still in the band, but N.Esh, who's kind of your dark wavy guy, he's gone. Bill Reiflin's in the group, which is a good sign, and Raymond Watts is still singing, but you've got some of the old guard, but you got this new wave coming in, and he hasn't gone back to the dance floor yet. He's like, I need a car payment. Let's I gotta make this car note. Let's crank out another one. And you know what? KMFDM doing it again. A treat for the freaks. Truth or dare. It's fine. Again, I think I'm probably gonna say it's fine to every album past this point because they all sound the same to me at this point.
I like this change in 2002. Similar to what happened in 1993 and 1995, you changed just enough and incorporated just enough metal into industrial. If I was a fan of Nine Inch Nails, which everybody was, thanks to Head Like a Hole being on the radio every single day, this has more of a dirge quality that I haven't heard up until this point. And I use that term very loosely because the band does not in any way, shape, or form dirge the way a Godflesh does.
No, not at all.
But they have that same slow down feeling at first. Then they remind you that you're listening to KMFDM, and they take the speed up, and they give you that sound, that beat, that drum machine that you expect when you're listening to KMFDM. It's unique enough that it doesn't sound like something that the Crystal Method would do later on.
I will give you that, and I do believe that that's why this lends itself well to driving, because it is propulsive. Like everything about these records in the second half of their career is very forward moving, just not stylistically. Just you know what I mean? It's much more. The music is about propulsion, but the style is very stuck in itself. But if you like this album, you're going to love the next 10.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be a little bit on the opposite side of the spectrum here. I don't think this sounds like the KMFDM of old, really at all. This sounds like a record executive heard KMFDM and was like, how do I manufacture a stylistic equivalent, but throw in all of the stuff that, you know, people that like that name will still like. So like some of the elements are there, but like instead of like if you're trying to make a McDonald's cheeseburger, you can put all the same ingredients together and you'll have a cheeseburger, but like maybe you used Hunt's ketchup instead of Heinz, or you used Kraft cheese instead of like sliced American from the deli or something like that. So like what you're getting is kind of a facsimile of KMFDM, and it's the same people, but these are much more like sing-songy verse chorus rock tracks to me.
Well, the loss of N.Esh is significant to the band. Like, they had a yin-yang relationship. Sasha wants to go pop, and N.Esh wanted to go dark.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the band's success, because he had a partier and a grumpy old man together. And they somehow got to make it work.
So me and Joe got it. I think you can guess who the grumpy old man is.
Joe, how dare you?
It's what I do.
He's the one drinking Jaeger, and I'm drinking just cold water out of a St. Louis County Library cup. So that ought to tell you.
We have 21 albums to get through. I'm doing one every 5.
Fair enough. But yeah, like I feel like this is the much more mainstream KMFDM. This is the album that the kids go out and buy, and they're like, yeah, man, I'm totally down with KMFDM. And then like some old stoner pulls out of a van with a KMFDM shirt, you know, hoodie on that has holes in it, and he's like, about time seeing kids listening to some good music. You know?
Well, again, they're the Eagles of industrial metal.
Right.
That definition is more accurate with this album and going forward than it ever was prior, because now you have a decade and a half of genre subtleties that you can pull from. You can do the late 80s thing where it's mostly rock. You can do the early mid 90s thing where it's kind of metal, or you can do the early 2000s thing where it's new metal with drum beats. It sounds like a film soundtrack at this point. It doesn't sound like an industrial band anymore. And maybe that is
super perceptive. I think you've really hit something on the head there, that it is now music for narrative again, instead of music as art, as piece.
So functionally, we're back to the origin of the band. It's a set piece for something that you're looking at, not something that you're listening to.
Which is interesting because this album also marks a significant, it's a new record label for them. It's the move from Wax Trax, which is now defunct, over to Metropolis, which is the stalwart, long-lasting goth industrial label that I believe is still cranking out the hits, but like everything was distributed via Metropolis in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like they had MSI for a long time. Our friends from last year, Mindless Self-Indulgence, on Metropolis. I love that everything that we do for this show is just a torture for you, Dan. It's just...
We call that the Matt Naas special.
That's a Matt Naas. I like to be affable while you're being tortured.
What I love is every time a band like this comes up in the list of bands to talk about, I'll get like 3 albums in and I'm like, we need to call Matt Naas. Like immediately. Like it's one of those, like we just have to, like it's our backup plan for this kind of stuff. And believe it or not, I really don't hate these records. I think that in a lot of ways, from being a guy that predominantly listens to hard rock and metal bands, this is way more up my alley than really anything that came before. A lot of the positives that I have mentioned on the career up to this point were just like, there's no denying that this was good, this wasn't good. You have to separate that out from what your preference is. This is my preference, but I have to admit that it isn't as special as what came before. So like, I'm okay with listening to, like, I like it like I like cheese fries. You know what I mean? Like, cheese fries aren't good for me, but I like them. So like, I must be hungry. I've already mentioned burgers, cheese fries. I think it's going to be a good night. But
let me help you out. 2003, World War III.
The News Times called it a butt rock masterpiece.
Yep. You beat me to that one. I was like, I had it in the back pocket. I was like, oh my God, like it is that though.
Oh yeah. And World War III is a Drug Against War Part 3. Is the same fucking song. I love it. It's so dumb. But of course, now they have the perfect foil in George W. Bush. So they're just going for it. We're making a statement. Super brave in 2003 to be
wait a second. You're saying in 2003, KMFDM has a political target, and that is the president of the United States?
But again, they're just doing the ministry thing again.
Where the fuck have I heard this before?
Last year when we talked about ministry, like the exact same thing, dude. Like, again, they're looking over. They're like, "Hey, Al, what do the kids want to hear right now?" "Oh, I hate George Bush so much." Al, are you there?
I'm listening to Comedy Christ.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm doing heroin and hating George Bush.
This is rough, okay? But that was a really rough era for ministry. But anyway, but this goes down so much better than what ministry was doing that year.
Oh yeah. Well, KMFDM at least cared about making an album.
Yeah. I don't know what Al Jorgensen was making.
He doesn't care what he's making. The fact that Lauren read his biography and he believes his best music is still to come speaks to the insanity of Al Jorgensen.
Oh my God. He's a true enigma. But I think
one of a kind.
I think the World War III does run the risk of sounding generically like an industrial rock band from 2003. And I mean, wish granted, that is exactly what it is.
And you're definitely getting that. You're getting that feeling of like, oh, this is on that TBS movie where the guy goes into a strip club. Yep. We talk about this all the time in Roach Koach, where it's just like the detective going like, "Have you seen this girl?" Like, I don't know if we've seen her. That's what's going on. Anybody else need a nap?
Oh God.
Or should we move on?
I mean, I like this album, but I like it because it sounds like what I think KMFDM sounds like when I decide to listen to this band. 2005.
How rock.
This rock. This is rock. Thank you.
They did it. They've become 9 Inch Nails.
They reverted back to what the source is in the general mainstream.
I have become 9 Inch Nails, destroyer of worlds.
You were supposed to defeat the dark side, not join it.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
You remember our album called Money? We were going to name this one Money, but we already had a album out called Money. But I don't think it was that. I think by the time you're in 2005, even they realized that they need to up the electronics, down the trying to be heavy stuff. So like they made smart choices, or they had a guy that was like, "Here's how you make smart choices."
Well, read the room. Like they know exactly what people want from them. I will say this. I have met KMFDM. They did an in-store at the record store I worked at in the 2000s. And they know. They spend a lot of time with their fans. They care deeply about their fans. They respond to their fans. So if their fans are just like, where'd the synths go? They're actually going to listen to that, and they're not going to just kowtow, but they're probably going to be like, you know what? I miss the synths too.
They're not going to kowtow. They're going to howl rock. Howl rock.
They're going to howl rock.
Hey, Dan, you know what I haven't heard in a while? That micro chord. Can we plug that thing in and just hit a low C?
No, because we made the mistake of putting keyboard in our albums, and oh my God, you can't have a hardcore record with keyboards. And then Under Oath went on to sell like how many million records? But I digress. But yeah, so this is mainstream. This is I feel like this entire run of records is, all right, guys, we did the underground industrial thing. We've been through it. Let's try to do this thing for real. Let's make like a real run for it. Like to be a real band, like and be marketed, because I remember at this time, I would have gotten out of high school, I guess probably a year before this. So I graduated in 2004. And I remember like we still had like rivet heads at our school that, would be, they were actually older than us. They didn't make it through all the grades in sequential order, but like it was definitely, these guys would always be all like, KMFDM used to be a great band, but now they just want to be Linkin Park, which is like such an exaggeration, obviously, of what is really going on here. But there is a little bit of truth to that, in the sense that they are trying to really be like, I want to make a living doing this consistently. Like they had popular moments before, but they just never really reached that. So yeah. I think in that regard, I think that they're killing it. They're getting new fans here.
It's the thing every high school music person has to get through their head. You hit a point where you have to decide, do you want to be artistic or do you want to sell records and make a living playing the songs that you write and call artistic?
Well, if you play the shit that they like, the people will come.
Absolutely. Are we ready for 2007?
Yeah, good luck pronouncing this one. I can't wait.
Without Form and Void. Sorry, Tohu Va Bohu. I do my research.
Cool.
Tohu Va Bohu. And it's their 15th studio album.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We have 6 left. Oh.
And guess what? This one sounds like How Rock.
Yeah. I listened to this one today in the car because I was like, I don't know if I listened to this one yet. Again, great for driving. But I couldn't tell you what any song was called. And I think that's kind of by design.
This one sounds like KMFDM to me.
This one was a little bit more electronic.
Yeah, but was it really?
It wasn't quite guitar heavy. That's all I got. Like, that's the only thing that I can say about it. Yeah. Blitz!
It's 2009.
And no, we're not talking about Krieg.
Hey, Dan, do you know what happens if you listen to the next record in a ballroom?
Blitz!
You get a ballroom blitz. 2009.
Oh, Dan is so disappointed in you, Joe. He gave you a look that said, "Et tu, Joe?"
I've seen
That's
it before.
Fine. Let me just turn around. I'm sure you guys can fit a 39th stab wound right in the back. It's fine. Man.
So here's what I noticed
guys.
when I was listening to this record. It sounds like the late 90s underground industrial bands that were just kind of doing the same thing that they had been listening to for the past 15 years. No, it's not new. No, it's not unique. And it definitely hasn't been unique for at least the last 3 albums. But it's 2007. This is when metalcore was a thing. And I'm listening to a record that doesn't just sound old school industrial, but it sounds very cosmetically old school. It sounds like I could put it on a cassette tape, put it in my car, and it would sound exactly the same as driving in 1995. If you're a fan of this style, that's really fucking cool.
You're not wrong. You are absolutely not wrong. And as I said before, at this point, they had to care so much about their fans and providing. They're now the keeper of the keys. Like, there isn't a whole lot of bands doing this anyway. But in 2007, nobody's doing this.
It's a quantity thing too, because now you can trash whatever you want to trash. And trust me, I have. But like, I think that like this band now has such a bloated discography that nobody can bring anything against them, because they could say, yeah, we decided to go back to our roots on this record. And you can be like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of that. It's not really that. Like, not if you really think about it. But yeah, sure, guys. Whatever you guys want. You guys obviously know this style better than anybody. You wouldn't have been around as long as you've been around. It's like the George Lucas effect. Like, nobody's going to question any of your decisions because you're the proclaimed kings of this. And not even self-proclaimed. Everybody has come together and said, KMFDM, they are the industrial band that you're supposed to listen to. And if you don't like it, you don't get it.
Oh, we've ascended to you don't get it now?
Okay, we covered all of that in extreme detail on the Tool episode, but like it is totally like it is totally that way. So like I think this record is all right, but as a throwback industrial record, does it really hold a candle to their older material? Not really.
No.
Not even close.
It exists. No, it's not bad.
Right, but I think to Dan's larger point, it is they are now locked in for perpetuity as the industrial metal band. Like, they're now Fish. They are now, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm just saying, like, put out record, tour, connect with fans, pass the tapes, keep the lamplight trimmed and burning. We're here for you. Kind of mock for Mir.
Right.
Matt Naas, did you just compare KMFDM to Fish?
I did. I'm not happy about it because I can't. It would be so funny to see Sasha like noodle.
I'm revving this one up. Get out of my house.
You mean I don't have to talk about 7 more albums?
Oh no!
I'll see you guys later.
Oh no! I've already installed the leg irons. You're not going anywhere.
Hey, Dan, you want to tell me the name of the album in 2011?
WTF, man. I think that, like, this record is... They're like... Guys, you guys remember we put a record out a long time ago called Naive? I know you probably weren't born yet, but you know, just stick with me. This is the new Naive, baby. We've gotten it. We're here. Check this out.
It's only our 17th studio album.
Yeah, I hope you guys haven't been holding on for too long for us to do this.
I feel like there's an opportunity here for parody. Just change the name of this record to This Is the New Old Shit.
But I think it's fine. Like
I listened to it today. I just was like, okay, I gotta be in the KMFDM headspace. I put on Crank while driving. Perfect.
Oh yeah.
Fuck yeah.
These are great driving songs. These are soundtrack of your life songs, but these are not sit down and like, oh, let me reflect on that.
So how fast do you need to go to match the beat to the Stripes on the Highway?
That's right. Exactly. It's like that's what we're looking for. And they give it to you in spades. And that's what I love about it. I am still upset that I said Fish. I'm so sorry, guys. I hate Fish. I'm not a fan.
I accept your apology. Come back in.
Thanks, guys.
We're just gonna edit it to where you're gonna be like they're like the, and then it's gonna go and I don't know, robotic voice is gonna say Metallica of, like,
you know, they're like the Metallica. Well, who else puts out an album a year?
Yeah,
you know, like the other thing that I was thinking of, like they haven't as many albums as Guided by Voices, but that's like pretty obtuse reference.
You know what I want to hear in 2011? I want to hear the KMFDM B-sides.
You've heard them. Up to this point, you've heard all of them.
Well, that's the thing is like, how could they not include them? Like, how much material do you have? Because it's all the same. 2013.
Who wants to say the name of this one?
I might censor myself for saying this one. 2013. Kunst.
I was like, you're the only, you say it, Joe, because you're the only one that doesn't have sleeping children upstairs. I actually really like this one. It's not like, I mean, I don't have the vinyl, but like, I mean, I think that like this is so much more danceable and fun. It's like Money was. I feel like they're going back through their catalog and they're like, okay, so this one's like Naive. This one's going to be more like Money, where it's going to be more like we're going to get it played in the clubs and all of that stuff. So like, I don't know. It's nice for me. There's not so much on the industrial metal side of things. I feel like it's a little bit more of a pure industrial release, and for that I salute them.
Yeah, I liked it. To you, they're not making bad records. They're just not making breakthrough records. I would be hard pressed to be like, listen to Kunst, new fan of KMFDM. You know, I feel like we're saying the same thing a few times, but it's worth repeating because they keep putting out albums. Obviously, it's to placate their fan base and keep people engaged and to have something to promote. It's much easier to go anywhere when you have something to promote. You know, they're doing it. They're making a living as a band, which is the hardest thing in the world to do.
And if this is 2013 and you are a 16-year-old kid who's never listened to industrial before, you're not just hearing KMFDM. You're definitely not hearing only Nine Inch Nails. You're hearing all of the underground, intense dance music, especially if you're from the other side of the world. This record, to me, I get the same feeling I get when I listen to Combi Christ. And I don't listen to that band because I think they're amazing.
Joe, do you want to do a Combi Christ episode?
Do you want to do a Combi Christ episode, Dan?
Absolutely not.
This is my rifle. It is my life. 8 minutes later.
All right. It's all right. Your time will come. I think that they are being a little bit more themselves here, though. They're a little bit more dialed into what they originally started doing creatively in the beginning, and they're not so much trying to go after the alt metal crowd and all of that. I think they're putting out electronic pure industrial albums. There's just so many of them, man. I'm just like, how many bands do you know? They're like, okay, we've had this career. Now this career's over. Now we're going to start this career again. And now this one's over. And now here we are again, starting another career.
In a way, they very smartly are beating streaming because they keep putting things out there so that they can have as much content as humanly possible for KMFDM to get any listen that they possibly can. They're SoundCloud rappers before SoundCloud rappers, guys. These guys don't miss. Sasha Konietzko is a genius.
I can't deny that.
And he knew that our time will come.
2014.
Woo!
I hate to tell it to you guys, but your time kind of came and went, man, like 15 years ago. I hate to be the first one to break this to you, but like it's gone. I mean, I appreciate you guys are holding out and fighting the good fight and all that, but like at this point, man, I guess at this point I would just be like, if we ever get to 1,000 episodes of discography discussion, I want someone to suffocate me with a pillow. Like, you know, because like I will have done the greatest thing that I would have done probably 800 episodes prior to that.
I'm just going to write that down.
And I feel
now.
like it's kind of like this. It's kind of like this where it's like, I appreciate that you guys are doing music, but like I don't really. I'm just saying I appreciate it because that's the nice thing to say. But it's too much. Like it's too much ice cream. It's like that scene in what's that movie, Matilda, where the little kid eats the entire chocolate cake, and the chocolate cake might be pretty good or whatever, but like
it's diminishing returns.
You only need a piece of cake, man. And this is the whole bakery, and I'm having trouble, and I realize that this is the fundamental flaw in our show format, where it's like, I'm sure if I was listening to these every single year when they were coming out, I'd be like, oh yeah, this was cool, this is cool, this is cool. But
it's like a booster shot, right? It's just a booster shot of KMFDM.
Yeah, it's just too much. It's just too much, guys. You're doing great, but it's too much.
I just want to say for the record, if I take Dan's last statement literally, I will have to suffocate him on 4/20/2036.
All right, I'll put it in my Google Calendar and I'll see you then. You know, it's fine. Trust me, I will not even fight it at that point.
I welcome death's sweet embrace.
Okay.
The angels will show up in their little Cannibal Corpse shirts and take me to hell, you know, where I belong. But like, I think that like yeah, this is fine. It's all fine. It's gonna be fine.
Right. Let's just write it out. So that's our time will come. Take us home, Joe. We got 2 more.
2017. If you don't give a shit, you get your hell yeah.
Hell yeah, Z-Rock.
I enjoy this way more than I
92.5.
enjoy Hell Yeah. If that sweetens the pot for anybody, this is better than the band Hell Yeah.
No, that's true. And we get Rip the System 2.0. So there that is.
So now we're in 2.0 territory where we're just revising old ideas, remixing them,
Well,
making them
to say that
the
they
same.
haven't been remixing old ideas is an understatement. There's been a lot of 7.0s.
Are there any guitars on these records at this point? I don't remember Hell Yeah having any kind of guitar driven. Like, it's almost starting to sound like electronica at this point. Like, they are going through some sort of musical arc here, but I'm just so exhausted I'm missing it.
It has the old school industrial direct guitar feel. So think late 80s, early 90s. Yes, the guitars are there, but they're mixing them in with synthesized guitars. So
Yeah,
you get what you get.
All right, let's do it.
Oh
Last
my
record,
god.
21st. Oh my god, 21st album in the lineup.
2019. Welcome to Paradise. Fucking kill. Fucking kill. Fucking motherfucking kill.
Great open, hot open. Really happy to hear that. Happy to hear Raymond Watts' voice back on Binge, Boil, and Blow. This is how they get you. They give you a little bit of that thing that you liked before.
Are you
Like-
still listening to KMFDM? Because if
Right,
you
oh.
are, it's exactly
it.
what you wanted.
Does anything else exist at this point? It's like my whole world now.
We have become brute paintings.
Oh, God.
We're the next album cover for KMFDM critique. Just crush the people who review music. They don't understand, and only the fans do. Watch TV, sit at the computer. Facebook is a place for losers.
Matt, can I get a
That's
take
why I'm
the
switching all
shot
my
chant?
socials over to MeWe.
Wake up in the future, wear your own t-shirts, go to bed tired, and eat some cake. Oh, it's so easy to write KMFDM. No wonder they have
I'm listening
21
to
albums.
listening to No Regret, and as soon as you started the dan it started. I'm not even kidding. Like, for a second I was like, Joe, that was an amazing cue up, but it's like just on my system here. Yeah, like, again, do you like KMFDM? Then you're gonna like this record, or maybe not. I don't know. I think it's fine. It's a good record in 2019 for KMFDM, and there's really not a whole lot else I can say about it. There's nothing new here. If you've only heard old stuff, you're good. They're not gonna reinvent the wheel here. And I will say my politically correct statement in that it doesn't have to be that. They absolutely are doing exactly what we do every single day. We go to work, and what do? The same thing we did yesterday, over and over and over and over and over again. So
They're not upsetting anybody.
not at all. Not at all. They're totally fine, and I'm glad that that they are successful doing the thing that they want to do.
I don't know if I ever want to listen to KMFDM again.
You don't have to.
I might be able to put them to bed and be like, that was a wonderful part of my life. But you guys, I'm gonna go this way. I'm freaking Brad Pitt at the end of Ocean's 11. I'm eating an apple and walking away. Don't need to hang out by this fountain with you guys anymore.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, it's like my favorite Zayo song right now. I Leave You in Peace. Like, like, it's totally cool. You guys, I'm gonna do my thing over here, and you guys just keep doing the thing that you're doing, and I hope it works out for you, buddy. You know what? And in about 5 years, I'm gonna be feeling nostalgic, and I might even buy a hoodie because I drive a creepy van, and my KMFDM hoodie is worn out with holes in it. So, full circle.
Final thoughts on KMFDM. Dan.
KMFDM is obviously like the industrial band that you need to listen to. I do not recommend listening to all of it, but I think that if you go back to their 90s era, I think that was the era where they were really doing cool things and doing things that were different than I think what a lot of other bands were doing at the time. And so in that regard, they absolutely live up to the legend. But I do think that just like any other human beings, you can't deliver on that level forever, and you don't have to. It's like a baseball player. You know, you don't want to see your favorite baseball player become 90 years old and just completely be terrible. And I do worry sometimes that they're falling into that. But at the same time, like these last 5 or 6 albums, as much of a slog as they might have been for us to get through, were not terrible. They were fine. Like this band actually really didn't have a record where we were like, oh God, what are they doing here? So
no, absolutely not.
In that regard, it's a success. So that's my final thought. It was a success.
Matt, what about you?
What a delight. What a delight to go back through and listen to some stuff that's very nostalgic for me. And all in all, it was a good experience, but all in all, it was a repetitive experience. I think, Dan, you nailed it. Once they broke out of the 90s, the innovation was kind of like, that's what we did. And the last 10 to 20 years has been a lot of like reinventing the thing that they're known for, and bless them for it because they've kept the torch lit. What would be fun is to hear bands or artists who have been influenced by KMFDM doing their take on this music again, because I'm sure it's out there, but it's very hard to find at this point. But yeah, 21 records is a lot. It's just a lot of output. But for an art rock band from Deutschland, I mean, what else would you expect? It's a lot of pleasure and a lot of pain.
When we started this podcast, I believed we could do more than 200 episodes, but I never believed we would get here. And I did not believe that we would have the feedback and the fans that we have. So I want to say thank you, first of all, because every time you download an episode of this podcast, that makes it worth it. KMFDM is not the episode 200 you wanted, but it is the episode 200 that you deserve. It falls in Industrial December. It's a big name in the world of industrial. There is a reason for that. I've listened to KMFDM. I think everyone has listened to KMFDM. But I don't think KMFDM is the standard when it comes to industrial metal or industrial rock. But like Matt said, they keep the torch lit. And for the past 20 years, they remind everybody what the sound is. Just a little bit of rock, just a little bit of metal, but all darkness, all atmosphere. If you're a fan of industrial metal, you are a fan of KMFDM. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to everybody else that listens to nothing but death, grind, and everything in between and tries to make their week the most intense, the most brutal that they can possibly imagine. And in some cases, what they can't imagine. You need to take a break. You need to calm down just a little bit. And unless your name is Discuss Metal Dan, you need to dance a little bit. So listen to KMFDM. You're going to have a good time, and you're going to enjoy the break from whatever you're listening to this week. Unfortunately, it's all going to run together eventually. That's okay too, because 2020 has been a bad year. But this is the year you can listen to KMFDM and not really care what song it is. You're going to have a good experience, and you're going to have a good time. And that is ironic considering the band is giving you such a dark atmosphere to enjoy. Dan, what's your album of the week?
My album of the week is a no contest, Human by Death. I This is just so the polar opposite of what we've been talking about all night, and it's absolutely the palate cleanser that I needed to get through it. And so yeah, I appreciate Chuck Schuldiner and the boys giving me a nice progressive melodic death metal record to balance out all the beeps and boops and get them out of my head.
Matt, what about you?
I really have been enjoying Lament, the new Touché Amoré record, and produced by the angel Ross Robinson. Really fucking, it's great. It's just really great. And on vinyl, Coltrane Ballads. Acoustic Sounds has just started. Acoustic Sounds is out of Salinas, Kansas. Is connected to Quality Record Pressings, and they are redoing some Verve jazz. And Coltrane did ballads, and it is the antithesis of KMFDM. It's super chill, and if you don't like jazz, you'll probably like this record anyway, because it feels like an exhale. Like you put it on and you're like, and it's really cool. But yeah, that Touché Amoré record is so good. I just love it.
Yeah, I just popped it up on my Spotify.
Yeah, I dig it. I really, it totally makes sense why Ross Robinson produced it. It is so hard on your sleeve, everything that you got in you out type of record. But at the same time, it's on Epitaph, so it's going to be catchy and melodic a lot more than it's going to be inaccessible and painful.
Gentlemen,
if you say Godsmack, I swear to God.
I'm not the one who's so bold.
we'll get to that.
Is that episode 300?
I'm thinking about it.
The Godsmack.
I gotta go.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
For me, it's Ministry, Psalm 69.
Beautiful.
My friends at the Roach Koach decided to feature Ministry this week, and that reminded me that KMFDM, despite their notoriety, is not the name in industrial metal. So I put on a copy of Psalm 69, and it's been a fucking good week, guys. Episode 200. Dan, did you ever think we were going to do this 200 times?
I mean, to be honest, not really. I thought we'd get 50 episodes in like everybody else and just pit her out. And so this is where I'm going to get like a little sappy or whatever because it's episode 200. But like, honestly, like I really would not be doing this if it wasn't for the people that have reached out to us, that have emailed us, that have, sent us DMs, sent us all this stuff about how much they love the show and how much, requesting us to talk about bands. And, because I mean, I'm probably a huge fan of maybe like 20 bands total, like in my life. And so once I would have run out of those bands, that would have been about it, and so it's kind of cool getting these homework assignments, from you guys, like, hey, you should check this band out, you should check that out. And I feel like I've overall, over the past 4 years, been enjoying music more because I have to sit down with it. I have to spend the time and I have to analyze it. And sometimes it's not all good vibes, but a lot of the time it is. And so that's, yeah. So yeah, I never really thought we'd be here at this point, but I'm glad that we are. And I'm glad that Matt was here to be with us. We're huge, Roach Koach fans. We I remember hearing my first episode of Roach Koach thinking like, oh man, these guys, they do it every week. Like this is so cool, and yeah, like it was nice seeing like-minded people that are like, you know what, I'm going to listen to it so you don't have to, and that's super cool. That's as deep as I can get, is super cool.
Matt, thanks for hanging out with us, man.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. I love this once a year dip that I get to do with you guys. It's always a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Let's do an artist that only has like 5 records next time. That would be cool.
That's the problem with industrial. Every single band.
I know. I wanted to do 16 volt with you guys, and that was like 11. Like
16 volt. That was a good time though.
Those guys are great. I mean, I'm a big 16 volt fan. So yeah, they're wonderful. And I love Psalm 69. Psalm 69 just crushes I think NWO, Just One Fix, Jesus Built My Hot Rod, Scarecrow, like they're all timers. Like they're on Fuck With a Bowl. Like they're so, that album is, and then what? Connect the Goddamn Dots. Just love that so much. Again, I say there's heavier music out there, and I'm fully aware. But to me, at that time, that was the heaviest thing I ever heard in my life. And,
well, I had that experience last week when we did Godflesh. Have you heard Godflesh before?
I've never heard Godflesh.
Oh my God! So if you listen to Godflesh, they are.
You've been doing that a lot lately.
they're so heavy. Like they're what. If you could take somebody like me with my musical background and be like, industrial metal, so it sounds like this, right? That's what Godflesh sounds like. I mean, just impossibly heavy, dirgy music, but it's got electronic drums. It's got, a little bit of that dance beat in it or whatever, but like it's horribly depressing. Like don't listen to it on a bad day ever.
Right.
But like it's absolutely like what I thought heavy music, like heavy industrial metal was supposed to be. So once we start throwing out our 16 volts and our KMFDMs and Ministry and stuff, I'm listening to it and I'm like, oof. We're gonna go back and do Fear Factory again, right? But
well, an absolute pleasure. Anytime that you guys put up the signal, I'm happy to join you.
All right, Dan, for the 200th time, take us out, DFT.
If you've ever been listening to this podcast and you're like, guys, you've talked about 200 bands up to this point, but you seem to have always forgotten my favorite band. The truth of that is that I'm not a mind reader, and I don't know what your favorite band is or if I should talk about them or why. So you're going to have to reach out to me in some capacity, which the best way you can do that is at facebook.com/discography discussion. You can send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter at discussmetal. You can join our Facebook official group for Discography Discussion, where I occasionally post memes, and I'm trying to get more active on there. It's going to happen, I promise. But, feel free to step up if you want to, be more involved in that process. But we also have our Discord server where you can chat with people all around the world pretty much 24/7. There'll be a link in the show notes that'll take you right to our Discord server. If you want to represent Discography Discussion on the street, you can get a Discography Discussion hoodie. It's getting cold outside. We have marked these things down to where we're basically not making any money on them at all. There'll be a link in the show notes for that. And so I mean, really, with that many outlets, it's kind of your fault if you can't reach out to us. I mean, I'm even like, you can probably find me on Facebook and even on Twitter. If you care enough about video games or want to see the show streamed live, you can check us out on twitch.tv/discussmetaldan. I stream twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 10:30 Central Standard Time, and that is absolutely in the PM. And that's all I got, Joe. That's all the plugs I got.
And on that note, this has been episode 200 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening every single week. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things Discography Discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Hey, Joe, can I have some money?
$1 a month gets you into that exclusive album review feed. You fucking did it, guys.
Is that it? Is that it?
That's fucking
Did we
it.
do it. Oh, my God.
Yeah, buddies.
I'm going to refill this. Matt, do you need a refill? It'll take me a while to get there, but I can...
We'll just drive you up a refill in about 7 hours.
Hey, yeah, but just top me off, bro. Boys.
Gotta go.